Hey, welcome to another Valley Forged. I look a little tan. I was just at the beach, which you might have saw in my last episode. That was wonderful and refreshing. I feel really refreshed. But we're here to talk about the Atomstack A70, which is behind me. You can see in the back there in the enclosure. And we're going to talk about all this again. I've made a couple of review videos, but that was early on when I got the machine, trying to get it all dialed in and learning a lot more about it. And after using it for a couple of months consistently, and also, I was on Sunday Night Live with Clack Shack and Ventura the other day. Thanks again, guys. And I noticed that Clack has moved to using mostly Atomstack machines himself for his business. And so that's two of us that have kind of gone to Atomstack. So what's going on? Atomstack has really gotten a lot better. And I mentioned in another review, I was rather hard on Atomstack for a long time. Really not happy with their lasers, but they have just, in this past year, just come to become one of the best brands. Not perfect, absolutely. And I think they're still missing kind of this middle. In fact, let's run over to the Atomstack page. You can see here's the A70, the one I'm going to talk about today. It's running $16.99, but they sent, I will be putting this below it, and I appreciate you using my link, whatever you end up getting. But there's $120 off for over $1,000 and $50 off over $500. I'll put this codes below. And so this is going to make this, $15.80 or something, and I think when you buy directly from the site here, you're not going to pay tax. So let's call it $1,600 for a 70-watt laser. I don't think that you can touch that. I don't think there's anything really close. Certainly not anything that I've been able to test that I can vouch for. I would love to test anything else out that I feel is going to be good quality. There are some things about where Atomstack has gone lately that I'm really impressed with. Some things with the 70 watt that I will say they need to do better. But it's still my main machine, and I can't really see replacing it for anything less than a larger CO2 laser. There's just really nowhere else to go for me. Now, that's going to be pretty expensive for some people. And, of course, the entry level, what I'm telling everybody to get these days is the A20, specifically the Pro V2 24 watt. Now, with the discount code below, you're going to pay around $400 for this. If you get something, it's got to be over $500 for you to get the little bit off. But I certainly would suggest getting the same enclosure that I got here from Atomstack. It's like $130 or something from them. Really good enclosure. Very, very happy with it. And when you upgrade into something larger, it's going to be ready for you. But this, the Ace Pro 2 has all of the latest features and a 24 watt, and I think it's just a really fantastic. I wouldn't buy anything less power, and I don't really see anything for under $400 that's going to come close to it. And that's kind of cool that I have two things from Atomstack that I can recommend. Now, what's in the middle is the thing. I've looked at their lasers that are in the middle. Clack Shack, his main laser he's using is the A40 Pro, I believe, and that is somewhere in the middle. Downside with that one for me is that the fan stays on all the time, and I've talked to Atomstack to see if they have some fix for that or whatever, because I would like to recommend that laser. Now, if having a fan on in your background, like you're in a shop like he is, or you make an enclosure and it's very quiet, may not bother you, so maybe something to look at. You can use my links below to get to that and check that out as well. It looks like you'll be able to get the $120 off for that. Seems like a great option. And one of the things we noticed, I'm going to say right away, that I have never seen with any other diode laser, is the lens almost never gets dirty. I have been running this laser like nonstop sometimes and cutting very extremely thick pieces of wood. I showed you in my test, this is closer to an inch. It's above 3/4 inch cherry, and I've been using it to make awards and things. So I actually make them stand up. I cut a little hole in the bottom. I stick a dowel in. I cut another piece like this. I just don't have any because they've all been sold or given away. But I'll put a hole here and make a base, so you kind of have this cool little stand, if you will, and they look beautiful. But you can see this is at above 3/4 inch. If this was sold at Home Depot, they'd call it 1 inch. Even it's like 0.8. But it really changes what you can do, right? It's not for everybody. If you're just getting into lasers, it's probably not the laser for you. I'm just saying. I'll get into it. I'm not going to tell you, everything right away because it's complicated. I don't want to steer you the wrong way. But the nice thing is that you are able to do this. You want to make cabinets or something. I mean, you literally could do it with this laser. But that power comes with responsibility, and that's why I want to explain it. I don't want to try and throw it all at once because I think it's important for you to get the nuance of what I'm trying to say here. The reason why I say it's maybe not for beginners. And if you're already a woodworker, you have 3D printers, you work with CNC, or you've had another laser, well, you're going to be just fine with this. But I just want to say it has so much power that you really kind of got to get what you're doing. And if I was just getting started, speaking to myself, I would get the the V2 24 watt and work on that for a while, learn my craft, learn what I'm doing, save myself some money. This will be way cheaper in a year or two, and you'll be able to just buy it then, right? There'll be new technology, there'll be new things. So that's why I say this. I really do this channel to help you. I mean, a lot of people out there thinking everybody's out to get somebody. That's really not the case. I mean, yes, I appreciate it when you use my links or buy my files on Etsy. That helps support me because I do this for a living. I get that. But don't take that to mean that I'm just going to pimp out some laser so that I can get you to buy it so I can make some money. If you think that's the case, then you are dead ass wrong. And I can tell you that's the same thing when it comes to, say, Ventari or Clack Shack. You're just dead wrong if you think all we're in it for is the money. I'm giving you a real review here. And if you are looking to buy a laser, I am trying to help you. And this is the laser I use. This is it. No other laser. That's the only one. And I have a laser business that I sell to real people. I'm sorry that I have to go through that little rant, but some people are just thick-headed. They think everybody's trying to steal from them, which I think it's good to kind of have that mentality, always be looking for shills, but at the same time, not everybody's like that. Now, the power and the cutting speed, that's why you buy this laser. To be able to not only be able to cut thick, I think for the most part, buying a diode laser to cut thick material has always been ridiculous. Yes, it can do it. You have to do multiple passes, whatever. it can do it. But it takes so long, and the consistency is just not there, that it wasn't really worth it. But with this laser, it's different. With this laser, I'm cutting that. I could cut it in one pass. I absolutely could. But I think it would be dangerous just because the laser head would be moving too slow and it would cause fires, even with air assist. And ain't nobody got time for that, right? I have my safety measures. It has flame, sensor. I don't use it. I'm always watching my laser, and I have other means to put fires out that I don't really trust. You get halfway through a job and this flame sensor goes out because the sun hits it in the wrong way. I'm too impatient. Not impatient, but the wood is very expensive. You're going to waste that whole job. So, safety is super important, and that's why I don't run my laser under 300 millimeters per minute generally, because I feel like once you get to the 300 millimeters per minute and above, and you use air assist, which of course everybody should, this comes with it, you're probably not going to catch fire, but you should always be ready. I think a fire blanket is a good first response. So always have a fire blanket handy and try and smother it. And then you, of course, fire extinguisher, things like that would be your second resort, because you're going to make a mess. You're going to destroy things. But hey, if you need to do it, you need to do it. You know what I mean? My dad was a fireman, so I guess I have that going for me. Famous last words, right? Anyways, the power is amazing. And the reason why I say that is not only do you have to worry about fires when you're cutting out the wood. Say you just made one of my Lord's Prayer crosses, right? I make those all the time with this. Amazing. Just throw down the wood, hit the start button, and the sucker is done. It's just phenomenal. But the little pieces that fall out underneath the honeycomb bed are now potential fire hazards if you run this thing too slow. They're going to smoke regardless. If you just have the honeycomb bed underneath with the little steel, bin underneath it, and the pieces fall, and then you cut something else on top of that, well, that 70 watts of laser power is going to be hitting all of those little pieces that are stuck in your honeycomb bed. And it's going to be smoking after every single time you make something. Learn this from experience. So just think in your head, if you're going to get one of these machines, this is the way I have done it. I took the little magnets, these Harbor Freight, any place, Amazon, wherever you want to get them, magnets, and I glued these to the corners of my honeycomb bed underneath to raise it up. Just, this is a good, I would say almost a half inch, but I think that's good. It just lets that airflow go out of there. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's very easy to fix with this laser head, just to move it up. So it really is just fine with any size of material. And I also put one kind of underneath the upper middle part of the bed, just to keep the honeycomb bed from, sagging. You can even put a couple if you want. It just depends on the quality of your bed. I love the Two Trees 500 by 500 millimeter steel one. You're not going to get much flex from that. I'm using some other one that the company gave me, and it from some other company. I hate to let them go to waste, but honestly, not very good. And so having a little magnet under there to help it keep from sagging is great. But that helps give you some distance, some space between that laser head and the material that falls down through. And ever since I've done that, with the magnets, I have had no issues at all with the extra smoking. It actually works really, really well. The airflow is much improved. And you guys could do this for any laser you have, but I I specifically needed to say it about the 70 watt because the power is so, when you think about it, I mean, most of you are using 20, 30, 40 watt lasers. That's going to be double or more power. This is powerful. And it really, again, changes the things that you do. Now, it's also extremely easy to clean. That laser head is so big. I'll show a picture of it right now. I mean, you could literally unalive somebody. I guess that's how you have to say it these days. With that thing, it is just enormous and very heavy. So you can imagine that thing is going back and forth. So some of the things you need to think about if you're going to buy this laser: extremely sturdy table, or you got to weigh it down, put some sandbags or whatever you got to do to, because that huge laser head module is going to be going back and forth. And you can imagine just, take your hand going back and forth and just seeing how much that will wobble even your body. So it does have specific legs on it, the way that they are, that you can actually screw those down, which I think is super helpful to keep the laser itself from ever moving. But your table's also going to have to be very sturdy. I built mine out of 4x4s. Works great. Now, this has all of the latest features. I just mentioned about the A40, the fan doesn't turn off. Well, this one, it does. It will run a little bit extra just to cool itself off, and then it turns off. So it could be on right now, and you would not hear a single sound, because also the air turns itself on and off through light burn. So that's another thing that you don't have to think about. It's a really powerful air, but the downside is the way that it's built, and we talked about this on Sunday Night Live. Ventari understands way more about these things than I do. He's some sort of double pump or something, which does make it louder, and the sound is a little bit more annoying than, a normal air assist that you would get from a cheap or a less powerful laser. But again, when you're not using it or you're not specifically cutting, it doesn't even come on. So not a big deal. So it has all of those latest features that I really love. It has all the latest safety features. It does come with a little screen. You could turn on and off all those things. It comes with autofocus, which works really good once you figure out how to set it up, which Clack Shack made a video on that, setting up that autofocus correctly. And it works great. I turned mine off because I don't need it. Like, it doesn't really do anything for me. If I'm cutting a certain height of wood, I adjust it manually and it just stays there. And I'm probably cutting, 100 of them or something. So it doesn't really help me to have it on. In fact, the chances of me forgetting to do something and making a mistake because the autofocus is on is, more of a detriment to me. But I'm not knocking it. It works great. It's probably one of the best autofocuses that I've seen or used, but I always turn them off anyway. But the lens itself, it always stays clean, but to check, you don't have to take it apart to be able to see if the lens is dirty. You just unscrew the little nozzle on the bottom, and you could literally Q-tip and clean the lens cover without having to take apart anything. And that's super helpful and makes it way quicker. A lot of times with lasers, it's difficult to get to that lens cover. It makes you think, I'll just run it for a little while longer because I don't want to have to go through the trouble of unscrewing it and taking it apart and doing all this sort of thing. Whereas with the Atomstack, you don't have to do any of that. But not only that, it stays clean more than any other diode laser I've ever seen. And so good job, Atomstack. However you actually used some sort of thought process of creating this, or you got really lucky, it is so much better than other lasers. It does have a 35 watt switch. So if you want to go down to the power of most other of these lasers, like a 30 watt, you could do that. I have only done that for the testing that I did in the last review video I did, just so that you all would know, hey, it works. Yes, it does great. It's unnecessary from what I've seen. And since you have all of your settings already made for 70 watts, trying to rethink all of that for the 35 watts is just a lot more trouble for me. And remembering that I turned the switch. So you go back to cutting and you're thinking, oh, hey, I'm not getting any power out of this. Or, the chances of destroying some material because you forgot, not worth it for me. I just do everything in 70 watts, which has worked fine ever since I raised the bed. I'm going through things a little bit more in depth in this video than I have in the last one. For people who are very serious about looking at this, I want them to understand everything that I've learned so far. I'm going to go through now. I've told you it works great. It has all the latest features. It has the rails work super well. The cable management is wonderful so far. All of the basics, wonderful. But what are the negatives? I'm going to go in depth into them. Now, obviously, the negatives weren't enough for me not to want to use it as my main machine. So I do recommend it. But here are the issues that you will probably have to deal with. One is belt tension. So far, I haven't seen any videos from anyone, because you have to put the belts together yourself, who hasn't had to readjust the belts, which isn't hard. But if you have it in a case, well, then you got to take the case, the case off or whatever, and all the cables loose or whatever, just so you can get to it, depending on where it is. It's pretty easy once it's in your open frame, but getting those belts tensioned perfectly, you need to do it looser than you would think. And what I learned, and from the help of the guys, is this bar here. Hopefully you can see it. I'm pointing a little arrow to it, but I'll try and make it bigger. If you can see when it's moving back and forth, that wobbles at all, it means you have the belts too tight. And they're going to end up being quite a bit looser than you think, but obviously there is such a thing as too loose. So just getting that right. If you're making circles, which this is what I used. I'll try and cover my eyes so it'll focus. This is what I used, and I did this over and over again until everything looked pretty good. And you can just keep doing that till you feel like, oh, okay, I'm getting, concentric circles, and I think it's concentric, right? And that's looking good. Now, that's probably the reason why I said it probably shouldn't be your first laser, because a lot of the newer lasers like this one are a bit easier to deal with, as far as belt tension, things like that. Again, not difficult, but you're probably not going to deal too much with the Ace V Pro 2, Also, the focus knob. Say you're going to manual focus this thing. It's a tiny little knob, and it is a little frustrating to use. Not difficult, but just when you're used to using other lasers and all you got to do is kind of turn a screw and move it up and down, it takes a little more. The loud air, which I noticed, the curve size is going to be bigger. It's 70 watts. So you are going, the amount of material that laser cuts out is going to be larger than, say, a 30 or a 20 watt. Now, you could fix that somewhat by catching it down to 35, which you would still have a more powerful laser than most of the other ones, if that matters to you. Now, for what I do, it doesn't seem to make much difference one way or the other. Still looks amazing. Even the engraving looks good. Perfectly serviceable. A lot of people defocus their laser anyway when they do engraving, so I don't know. I'm not the engraving guy. We all know, if you watch my videos, you know that I do engraving for the looks department, but not for fine engraving like photos and things like that. Finding the right size honeycomb bed. I have yet to find the right size honeycomb bed. I'm using a 500 millimeter by 500 millimeter bed right now, which is great. It does not allow me to use the full size of this. Now, this is a 400 by 500 millimeter bed size, but when you buy a honeycomb bed, they lie, basically. The frame of the honeycomb laser is 500 by 500. The working area is probably like 460. So I'm just fine in one direction, and I'm losing a little bit in the other direction. But that seems to be the best I've found, especially for a reasonable price for this machine. I bought the enclosure that comes from Atomstack, and it was $130, and it's fantastic. I have not seen a better enclosure for less money, and you can't even build one for that price. That is what I would recommend. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to mention, you know how I am when it comes to the module, and I like to be able to see all the way around the module, kind of like, Xtool on their 40 watt, and on the IKEAs, the A24 or something. No, not that one. Sorry, like the Acer that I had, the 36 watt. And on the Ace V2 Pro, I could show you right there. See, look, from any angle, I can see that laser. I know what it's doing. That's not the case here with the 70. That may be for safety reasons or whatever. You can take this cover off, and I know Clack has already done that. But then the manual focus, you will have to come up with a new way to do the manual focus, which is fine. I mean, you could easily cut something out for that. But since I'm using the manual focus, I literally still have mine on just because I've been busy. I need to get some work done. But I would prefer it if you could have a cover here that you could see 360. And then I've got the second protection of the enclosure. So I think I would be fine. I'm not sitting here staring at it all the time anyways. But do mind that it is a very, very powerful laser. You do not want to be looking at this thing. Have I said that it's powerful yet? And I think the last thing that I would say is the laser head is very, very heavy. So it could be a little iffy at super high speeds, depending on what you're doing. High speed cutting, I haven't really seen any issue, but high speed engraving, and then maybe you have it turned to fill all shapes by themselves or whatever instead of all at once. And sometimes, that going back really, really fast, there's just no way. I mean, when you feel this thing that feels like 10 pounds and you got this thing, coming back super fast, it's going to make some little squiggly lines. They did a really good job considering how big and heavy this thing is, but physics are still in play. And if you don't have the thing cinched down to the table, I use 3/4 inch plywood for the top of my table, plus 4x4s, and it still can move it. I should probably add some sandbags or something like that. But it's a beast. This is a fantastic laser. I'm very impressed with Atomstack, and they didn't try to use some cheap power supply. A lot of times that you run with these bigger lasers, the power supplies will not be enough or burn out or this or that. I haven't had any issues. I haven't had to contact Atomstack or anything like that. The only thing that I ran into was The burning, because I needed to raise the honeycomb bed. And I try to raise also the material when I can. I use those same exact magnets or some of the thinner ones, and I raise my material and let it fall. That gives you a couple of things. Make sure you cut from the inside out always, or else you can start running into trouble if it drops down and then you're still cutting. But it also lets you know that it cut out. Now, that's less of a problem when you have 70 watts than, say, some other lasers. But when you have a project and you lift it up and it hasn't cut out all the way, that is one of the worst feelings. And I really try and avoid that at all costs. So I raise my projects up a little bit and let everything drop down, so I know that it cut out fine, so that I can run it again if I needed to. But for this, the extra safety is really just keeping that material away because it is so powerful. I don't think that you can get anything like this for the cost. Your next step up is a CO2, which, $2,500, $3,000, you could probably, because when you buy a CO2 laser, it isn't just the CO2 laser. You got to think about chilling, and there's quite a lot of issues. And I want to run it on my table back there. So there are some benefits to having the CO2 laser, with being able to do clear acrylic, which does come into play when you have a business. So I will eventually also have a CO2 laser. I, at this point, wouldn't recommend you to go out and get a K40. They are, unless you really, really know what you're doing, they're a lot more trouble than they're worth. The issues and thoughts that you have to have about making this 70 watt where I'm perfect are nothing like trying to run a K40. But they do make some desktop CO2 lasers. You know about the P2, which is of course $5,000 or something, $4 or $5,000. Glowforge more than that. But then you've got the Polar Pro, which also has its issues. I'm looking at the Onyx, but again, you get into the CO2s, you're going to have some more issues that you have to deal with. This is, a cheaper alternative that really, wow, I can't say enough about. Really, really enjoying. It really has changed my game as far as what I can make, how fast I can make it. And I again want to thank Atomstack, and I think that I want to give them the praise they deserve from coming from a company. In fact, that's the last thing I want to mention. The amount of space that you get between the bottom of this module and the material is really generous. And that's one of the things that I hated about the old Atomstacks, is that distance between the bottom of the laser head and the material was so small that just a little flipped up piece could ruin your whole project, and did many times, not just on Atomstack, but a couple of the other laser manufacturers as well. You're not going to have a problem with this laser. It does give you plenty of space to be able to not worry about that destroying your project. I think it has some other great benefits as well. So one more praise. Again, good job, Atomstack. I'm looking to see more from you. I did send an email to Atomstack. I want a mid-range all-in-one from Atomstack, somewhere in the $1,000 to $1,400 range. Maybe 30, 40 watts. Just something that I can recommend for most people. Between the Ace Pro V2 and this, the 70 watt laser, this isn't for everybody, like I said. And it can be a bit expensive. So something more $1,000, $1,200 range I'd like to see. The A24 they make is wonderful, and you can see that on the other channels I mentioned. I think Ventari takes his to shows. It's great. The amount of space that you have to work with is just too limiting, in my opinion, for most people. And I don't want to talk people into getting that small area to work with if they don't absolutely know that's all they're going to need. But that machine that they have, the A24 with the case and everything included, I think is exactly what I'm talking about. I would like to see them get into that market. I know that a couple of other companies are doing that, and competition is good. Lots of really, really great lasers out right now, and it's a great time to be in the laser business. And I do this not just because I have the business, because I absolutely love doing it. I love waking up every day and making this stuff. I love working with you all. I put out in my last video trying to figure out, hey, are we going to do a Discord? Hate the word Discord. I wanted to mention the laser engraving community. I actually wanted to do this earlier. I got all caught up. On Facebook, this is Clack Shack Inventory, and I'm going to be hanging out here at least once a week. I just made some posts today, and we'll see about starting up a Discord as well. And just to have some places, not the YouTube comments, where we can talk back and forth more. But I do love your comments, and in fact, what I'm going to focus on will come from the comments below. Whether it's hanging out more on their laser engraving community, making a Discord, what videos I make, why, and some maybe adding. Maybe you want to buy the Atomstack A70, but you have some other questions. So let's leave all that below. And I think this video is long enough, but I appreciate you sticking with it to the end. And I hope you learned something. And if not, let me know why. Just be cool about it. All right. And I thank you again, and I'll see you in the next one. Love y'all. Oh, like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff, right? Bye.